Hello loves, and welcome to the next video in my wrap-up series as I count down the best, the worst, and the in-between of what I read in 2023. Today's video is going to be about the series that I read. One of the reading goals that I set for myself in 2023 was to finish some of the series that I had started. In 2021 and 2022, I had started and not finished 13 different series. So that was my focus for 2023. I still read a lot of standalones to try and balance out, but I avoided starting any new series as much as possible. I wasn't entirely successful in that, but I've done my best to stick to series that I've already started. So at the beginning of the year, on this post-it note, I wrote down the 13 series that I was in the middle of. So this video, I'm going to give you an update on my progress on those. And I also upgraded my tracking to a spreadsheet. So I will also give you a summary of the series that I did finish and maybe some that my post-it note didn't account for. The first series on my post-it note is Stephen Fry's Myths. That is Mythos, Heroes, and Troy. I had already in 2021 read Heroes and Mythos, and Troy was the one that I still needed to read, and I did read Troy this year. I don't have this on my completed series list because there is still another book coming out in 2024, but I am prepared for that to come out now and caught up with the series as it currently is released, so I'm going to consider that a plus completed, mission accomplished. My current average rating for the Myths series is currently sitting at a 4. I rated the first one, Mythos, really high at a 5. I loved it. It was kind of my first experience reading a lot of Greek mythology, so I really enjoyed that. And then Heroes was also good, but a little bit harder to follow because it kind of required you to remember a lot of the gods that you'd already been introduced to. And then Troy was lower than that. I prefer the Greek mythology that is more focused on the gods than Troy, which is focused on the retelling of the Trojan War. So the average rating for that series is currently at a 4, and we'll see how much I enjoy the Odyssey when it comes out. Second series on my post-it note is the Sprawl trilogy plus Burning Chrome. The Sprawl trilogy is the foundational text of the cyberpunk genre in literature. If you go on Reddit and ask for a cyberpunk genre recommendation, this is the first thing anyone's gonna comment. This is Neuromancer, Count Zero, and Mona Lisa Overdrive, and then there is also some short stories set in the same universe. Burning Chrome is that collection. I have completed this series this year. I gave an average across this series of 3.3. I did really enjoy the first Neuromancer book, and the short story collection had some good stories in it, but then Count Zero and Mona Lisa Overdrive kind of fell off for me, which ended up in an average of 3.31, or rounding down to 3.25. The next series on my list I do not own physically. I got them all from the library, and that is the Pretty Little Liars series. Now, the main books in this series, there are 16 of them. I didn't read any of the half or prequel books. I just kept to the main series because there were so many of them, and also most of them were mid, so I wasn't really that interested in reading even more once I had finished the main series. With the Pretty Little Liars series, there were some that I rated closer to a 4, and those tended to be the ones that were the build-up of the plot. And then the books in the series, about every 4 books, there was kind of a wrapping up of that mini plot, and I usually found those ones very unsatisfactory. I didn't find that the story wrapped up or covered all of the loose ends that I was hoping for. So that one averaged 3.1, rounding down to a 3 for the Pretty Little Liars series. Not terrible, and I definitely wasn't reading them thinking they were gonna be the pinnacle of literature. They were, you know, fun and light after reading something more serious. Next on my list is the Phryne Fisher mystery books. I have been getting these from the library and I just happen to have one on hand right now. Hence, I haven't finished this series yet. This series has 22 books in it, so it is quite a long series, and I am now working through this one now that I've finished Pretty Little Liars. So these are some murder mysteries set in 1920s Australia, and there is also a TV show based on these books that I did really enjoy. Similar to Pretty Little Liars, these are not the pinnacle of literature, but they're fun, light, fast reads when I want to have kind of a palate cleanser between things. So the next one for me in this series is number 7, Earn Burial, and the 6 I've read so far have averaged at a 3.3 average, rounding down to 3.25, so they're a little bit better than the Pretty Little Liars. They're written for an adult audience. Not the greatest things I've ever read, but I am enjoying it enough to continue. The next series on my list is the Stranger Things books. I have made significant progress on this one. At the beginning of the year, I think I had only read 2 of the 6 books. These books are set in the Stranger Things universe and tend to expand on the backstory of a certain character. So the first couple go into an expansion of that government group, and then the later ones choose kind of the newly introduced side characters. So there's one about Max, there's one about Lucas, and the one that I haven't read yet is about Eddie. I have the audiobook out from the library right now, so I'm hoping that I will finish that before the new year, if not very shortly after. So I'm almost going to be able to check that one off as complete. The next series is the Kane Chronicles by Rick Riordan. This is set in the same universe as the Percy Jackson books, but focuses on Egyptian mythology rather than Greek mythology. And I thought these ones were all right. I gave them each around a 2.75 or a 3. I'm not sure if it's Rick Riordan's writing is not as strong when it comes to the Egyptian mythology, or my interest is not as strong when it's Egyptian mythology. I just thought they weren't quite as well built in terms of the world as the Percy Jackson series. So these ones, this entire series ended up as a 3 for me, but at least I've completed it now and I can move on to some of the other Percy Jackson universe books. I think next would be the Magnus Chase series. If you've watched any of my recent wrap-ups or TBRs, then you know that I've been working diligently on the Sookie Stackhouse series. This is book number 7, which I'm hoping to finish by the end of the year. This series is about a telepath who lives in a world where vampires have just come out of the coffin and the misadventures that that causes for her. I am 6 books into the series and I am really enjoying it so far. The series is currently averaging about a 3.75 for me, and I'm hoping that this series I can wrap up in 2024. I am about halfway through the series at this point, so hopefully with 1 a month I should be able to finish this by about the summer of next year. Next is the Robot series by Isaac Asimov. This series is what the movie I, Robot is based on, which was one of my favorite movies growing up. So I was looking forward to reading this and I did finish it this year. However, I did not enjoy the books that much. The average rating ended up at a 3, so pretty mid-tier for me. This is a story about a detective who pairs up with a robot to solve murder mysteries, and it goes into a lot of technical stuff about how the robots are programmed, and I do find elements of that interesting, but I didn't much care for the detective character, and the stories very much rely on you liking him. So that series was mid for me, and at least I got it off my list. It was all going too well, and we finally got to one on my list that I made 0 progress on, and that is the Outlander series by Diane Gabaldon. One of my life goals is to own a castle in Scotland, so I very much enjoyed the first one in this series, and I am going to get to the rest of them, but I want to finish the Sookie Stackhouse series first, since that's a fantasy romance and within the same kind of genre, so I don't want to be working on the same ones at the same time. So I haven't made any progress on this, but I will finish the Sookie Stackhouse series in 2024, and then I can get to this one, and it's thousands and thousands of pages. I gave this one a 4 when I read it, so currently it is among the top in progress series for me in terms of ratings, but it's been one book, so we'll have to see if the rest of the series can live up to that. Alright, next series is also about robots, which is the Murderbot Diaries. This is by Martha Wells, and it is about a security bot who overcomes their programming to gain sentience and the misadventures that he has trying to find out who he is outside of his programming while also not getting himself taken offline by humans. So this series I had started in 2022, and there was actually a new release of it just, I think, in October. I have read that one, so I am now caught up on the Murderbot series until a new one gets released. And they also announced recently that they're making a TV series with Alexander Skarsgård as Murderbot, which he is my favorite part of True Blood, so I am very stoked about, and I'm glad that I am caught up on the books so I can dive right into that series without worrying about spoiling myself. The next series on my list is similar to Outlander, where I have not made any progress and I've only read one book in the series, which is the Six Tudor Queens, which is a series about each one of Henry VIII's wives. My most played artist on Spotify this year was the Six soundtrack, the live version, so definitely interested in reading through this series and getting a fictional yet really well-researched history of each of the six wives of Henry VIII. When I went into the first one, I had gotten it from the library because historical fiction is not usually my genre, but I ate this up. I gave it a 4.25, so I did buy a physical copy of this and the other 5 books in the series when there was a buy 3 get 1 free sale. So I have all of these ready to go, but again, because it is romance, I'm trying to stick to one series of a genre at a time. So this is on hold until I get through Outlander, and then we can start on this one. Second to last series on my post-it note was the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. This is a fairy tale retelling in a science fiction environment. So each of the books focuses on a different princess and a science fiction version of them. I did finish this series this year because even though it was further down my list in terms of priority, there were audiobooks available of this one, which made it easier for me to justify doing them at the same time as one of the other series that I was further along in. So I did finish this series. The average rating on this series was a 3.2. I did really enjoy the first one in this series, but I found as it went on, the concept got a bit repetitive, so I gave them kind of lower and lower, and none of them got particularly extremely low. I think Fairest I gave a 2.75, but they were kind of middle of the range. Also acknowledging that I believe they're intended for a young adult audience, so I am a bit older than that key demographic, so that might contribute to why they weren't exactly for me, but might be better for someone who's a bit younger. And the last series on my post-it note, I didn't actually think I was going to finish this year because it is 37 books, and that is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I have made progress. I finished Guards a couple days ago, which is the 8th book in the series, so I am plugging along, and this is currently my lowest rated in progress series at a 3.16. I really struggle with the Unseen University books in that one. I'm not enjoying them. I did enjoy Guards a lot more. I thought that because Terry Pratchett has kind of established the world, he can now focus on plot a bit better. I am going to continue the series and hope that as Terry Pratchett finds his footing, it turns into the amazing series that everyone on the internet seems to promise me it is. So those are all the series that at the beginning of 2023 I knew I was going to be trying to endeavor to read and that I had already started in 2022. The intention was not to start any new series until I had finished that list. but the best laid plans of mice and men. So I did start some new series. I try to keep them to duologies and trilogies as much as possible so that I only had to read a couple books and then I was caught up. The first series that I started and also finished in 2023 was Legends and Lattes, with the prequel Bookshops and Bone Dust, which came out fairly recently and I finished like 2 days ago. So this is a cozy fantasy series about an orc who, in the first one, retires from adventuring to open a coffee shop, and in the prequel is injured in her adventuring and has to take a little sabbatical to heal and ends up working in a bookshop. These are really just fun. I read Bookshops and Bone Dust wrapped up in a blanket with some hot chocolate, and it was a good time. Is it the best literature I've ever read? No, but it's not trying to be that. It's trying to be cozy. So I did enjoy these. I gave both of them a 4.5, so that's what the average rating ends up being. And I am interested to see if Travis Baldree will continue in this universe with some more cozy fantasy, and probably would check out whatever Travis Baldree decides to do next. The next series that I started in 2023 was the Ex Hex series. This was a book club pick, so I had to pick it up, and I have read the Ex Hex. I also got the sequel from the library and have read The Kiss Curse, and there is a third one that is coming out in 2024 that I haven't decided if I'm gonna pick up yet. So far this series has been kind of average for me. Romance isn't really my major genre. I will pick up an exceptional one every once in a while, but I find they have to do something new with the formula for me to enjoy it, and these just haven't really done that for me. The series is currently averaging at a 3.25, so we'll see how that goes once the third one comes out later in 2024. In the first book, the main character, Vivi, has a bad college relationship and curses him to have terrible hair for the rest of his life, and all of these other things said in anger. And then years later, the guy returns to the small town and the curse all of a sudden starts to impact him. There's a little bit of a mystery regarding the magic of the town, but overall, they were all right. The next series that I read completely in 2023 was The Broken Earth. This is 3 books by N.K. Jemisin about a kind of post-apocalyptic world where there's certain humans who can control the earth, and every once in a while there's a shift in the core of the earth which causes mass issues with the weather and leads people to become really insulated in their communities. This series started really strong for me. I did really enjoy the first one, and then the second and the third got more and more convoluted to the point where I lost the plot. Overall, the series ended up at a 3.33 for me. I, again, would say the first one's really strong, and the second two get a little confusing. In a similar vein, I read the Earthseed duology, which is Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. I read Parable of the Sower and I was really on the fence about it because it seemed kind of preachy about religion, and that's not something that I particularly enjoy reading. But then the second book really brought it together. So the series ended up at a 3.5 for me. I think someday I might reread it and reassess the first one's rating based on how I feel the duology ended. But overall, it's a really good series and I would recommend it. And the last series for this video, Celestial Kingdom duology. I think they did announce that there's another one coming out in 2024, but I will not be picking it up because I gave this series an average of 2.75. The covers, stunning. That's why I picked them up, because they were beautiful. But maybe I'm missing the cultural understanding of the mythology behind it, but I just didn't connect with any of the characters and didn't find the plot to be that interesting. I would have preferred there was a bit less focus on the romance and more of the plot and the politics, but overall this series just wasn't for me, which I so mad about because I wanted those beautiful covers on my bookshelf, but I'm not going to keep or buy anything that I didn't love. So this series, I'm finished what's currently been released and have decided I'm not going to continue with the series. I just remembered one more series that I started because it was a book club pick, but it's not in my spreadsheet yet because I had only read the first one, and that is Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyanchenko. In the first Vita Nostra book, there is this girl who is approached by this mysterious man and given a series of tasks, and once she completes them, she is invited to attend this university in this remote village. And at this university, she's given this textbook that makes no sense at all. But then as she studies and studies and studies, she ends up developing kind of magical, mystical powers. And oh, Vita Nostra, it was so good. I was grabbed immediately by this book. I am very excited that there's another one that I can read, Assassin of Reality. This one's about half the length of Vita Nostra, which is very nice, but I am very much looking forward to seeing where this goes from here. And I don't know why there is a public service announcement someone left in the book in the library, but we're gonna move on. I am excited to continue with this series. I think this is the only other one in the series and it's under 300 pages. So this isn't on my TBR for December, but if I have time, I'll finish this. If not, it'll be one of the first things I read in 2024 to wrap up this series. So that is a wrap up of the series that I read in 2023. In terms of my goal to focus on series that I already started, I am really proud of the progress that I made. There's only a few that I didn't at least get to some of the books for, and I think that for 2024, I'll be able to wrap up the Sookie Stackhouse series, the Phryne Fisher mystery series, and hopefully either the Outlander or Six Tudor Queens series. I'll continue to work on Discworld, but there's just so many books in that series and I have to usually wait a few weeks to get them in at the library, so no guarantee on finishing that next year. And hopefully I will be able to start some of the new series that are on my TBR shelf that I own, but I have been putting on hold until I'd wrapped up some existing series. So let me know in the comments down below which series in 2023 you enjoyed the most, and if you enjoyed, hit like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!